They won 85% of their games. They appeared in 10 straight championships. For an entire decade, the Cleveland Browns were the most dominant team in pro football. And yet, their dynasty is rarely mentioned in the same breath as the Steelers of the 70s or the Patriots of the 2000s. How were they so good? How did they maintain it? And why, despite all their success, are they still so underrated? The All-America Football Conference, or AAFC, was founded in 1944 as a competitor league to the NFL. One of the teams of this new league would be in Cleveland. Owner Arthur McBride needed somebody to run the team. His first choice was Notre Dame head coach Frank Leahy, but fortunately that deal fell through. That's because his next option was Paul Brown, a successful high school, college and military service coach. Paul Brown told the owner when he was hired, "I wanted to build a dynasty from the start." When Brown retired, he had won over 70% of his games in 39 years of coaching. I'd say he achieved that. The brilliance of Paul Brown was his innovations. He was the first to hire a coaching staff that would work year-round. He introduced film study, changed how teams scouted, even called plays from the sideline using messenger guards. But a great coach is nothing without his players. With full control over team operations, he leveraged his connections while coaching high school, college, and the Navy to fill out his roster. The most important decision was quarterback. Brown would utilize the T formation, so a smart quarterback with a good arm that could also run would be ideal. While coaching the Buckeyes, Brown had lost to Northwestern. It's a game he could not forget, with one player standing out: tailback Otto Graham. Nicknamed Automatic Otto for his precision, Graham became one of the most accurate passers of his era, despite playing in a league still dominated by the run game. Over his career, he ranked second in completion percentage, behind only Sammy Baugh, and Baugh threw half as many passes.
The first time I ever scouted the Browns, I realized after the first 20 plays, this is the first time I'd ever seen this happen. Here's a ball club who would run 20 plays, and 15 of those plays, they threw the ball on 15 plays. Remarkable.
It was Paul Brown's forward-thinking system, paired with Graham's talent, that made Cleveland dangerous through the air. But Graham wasn't just a passer. He rushed for 44 touchdowns in his career, an NFL record that stood for 61 years.
Otto was a guy that had great athletic ability. He was a running back at Northwestern. Paul Brown made him into a quarterback.
But what made Graham special wasn't just the arms or the legs. It was the wins. To this day, he holds the highest win percentage of any quarterback in NFL history.
To me, he's the greatest football player ever played, because in 10 years, he put us in a championship game 10 years in a row. A lot of guys had more ability and probably more skills, but he could win, and that's what counts, doesn't it?
It also helped Paul Brown fill the roster with a lot of talent. Brown wanted to win more than anything.
I don't care whether you're white or black, Catholic, Protestant, Jew, sex, you can be a communist, I guess. I can tell you that we will be successful in proportion to the caliber of people you are.
He signed the bruising fullback Mario Motley and linebacker Bill Willis when the NFL wasn't signing black players. With 6 of their rookies ending up in the Hall of Fame, the Browns coasted to a 12-2 record and a spot in the championship game. A 14-9 victory against the New York Yankees would kick off a decade of dominance. The Browns went on to win all 4 of the AAFC championship games, had a perfect season in 1948, and played 27 consecutive games without a loss. But Paul Brown demanded perfection. After they broke their streak of 29 games without a loss, Paul Brown chewed the team out. It was just one of 4 games lost in 4 years. So the players were furious, but they couldn't say anything to their coach. Instead, they took it out on the Los Angeles Dons the following week. But the Browns' dominance would be the downfall of the league. By 1949, attendance was falling because the Browns were blowing everybody out. They outscored opponents by almost 1,000 points. So following the 1949 season, the AAFC dissolved, with just 3 teams joining the NFL. However, despite the Browns' success, many were skeptical.
Although the Browns completely dominated their conference year after year, their minor league status afforded them little respect in the eyes of the big boys of the NFL.
As Redskins owner George Marshall said, the worst team in our league could beat the best team in theirs. Even the commissioner, Burt Bell, predicted the Browns would be lucky to win 3 games in 1950. Their first game was against the 2-time defending champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. It was expected to be a blowout.
For 4 years, we read what a lousy league we were in, what lousy teams we were that we couldn't even begin to play against the NFL. They had made so many derogatory comments about our league. Their worst team could beat our best team. So we were emotionally ready to go. We wanted to show them that we had a good football team.
What many failed to realize was they were facing Paul Brown, the father of pro football. He had come prepared. Years earlier, Brown had proposed an AAFC NFL championship game, and just in case it ever happened, he studied game film of the Eagles. The edge showed immediately. Graham's first pass was a 59-yard touchdown to Dub Jones. The game wasn't close. The Browns humiliated the Eagles 35-10.
In perhaps the greatest team debut in sports history, the Browns' rout of the world champions stunningly demonstrated they were not only worthy of the NFL, but they would be a giant of the league for years to come. Not bad for a Bush League team with a high school coach.
However, the Eagles coach was not convinced. Brown would be a better basketball coach because all he does is put the ball in the air. In response, when the Browns faced the Eagles again in Week 12, they didn't throw the ball once. They finished the game with 41 rush attempts and 0 passes, yet they still won 13-7. Those were 2 victories in a 10-2 season, which put them in the divisional round to face the Giants. In a defensive slugfest, the Browns barely survived, winning 8-3. The championship game, however, would be the opposite. The Rams had set an NFL record, scoring almost 39 points a game. In an offensive shootout, the Browns trailed by 1 with just over 3 minutes left. Graham ran a quarterback draw play, and then he fumbled. He headed to the sideline, head hanging, completely devastated. He had just lost them the game. But the defense would stand strong, and the Browns got the ball back with just under 2 minutes left.
Down by 2 points, their last hope resting on the arms and legs of Otto Graf. It was at this point Graham let the Rams and the NFL skeptics know they were dealing with a great one, who from this time on would be considered the greatest 2-minute quarterback in the league.
Graham got out of a deep hole several times. He scrambled around. He kept the ball alive. One time it was 4th and 19, and somehow he made it.
Automatic Otto set up a game-winning field goal with 20 seconds left.
Rosa will attempt the field goal. It'll be 15 yards. He puts the ball. It's up in the air. Score!
After the 1950 season, Bert Bell changed his mind when he called the Browns the greatest team to ever play the game. That may have been premature. While the Browns reached the next 3 championship games, Automatic Otto wasn't so automatic. In 1951, a fumble and 3 interceptions resulted in a Browns 24-17 loss. Graham redeemed himself in 1952, but despite the Browns outgaining the Lions, they lost 17-7. It seemed the Lions had the Browns' number, as they were 0-3 against them since 1950. That would include another loss in the 1953 championship game, when Graham completed just 13% of his passes. After that, he wanted to jump off the building, as he felt he was the main factor in losing. He had won the MVP in 1951 and 1953, but that meant little. The objective was to win. When Paul Brown talked contract, the championship game was part of it. We took the championship game for granted. Things didn't look like they would get better in 1954. Many of the players who joined in 1946 were either retiring or getting old. Graham himself planned to retire at the end of the season. While they led the NFL with a 40-8 record in their first 4 years, they lost 3 straight title games. They'd once again be facing the Lions in the championship game, who they had lost to in the regular season. However, Graham finally got the monkey off his back, as the Browns annihilated them 56-10. He rushed for 3 touchdowns and passed for 3. With that, Graham retired on top. But after a poor preseason, Paul Brown was still searching for a quarterback to replace Graham. A $25,000 check, which gave Graham the highest salary in the league, was enough to convince him to come out of retirement for 1 more season. He'd win his 3rd MVP, as the Browns finished with a league-best 9-2-1 record. This time, that MVP felt much sweeter, because the Browns blasted the Rams 38-14 in the championship game. Now, Graham retired for good. He had just played 10 seasons of pro football, and took the Browns to the title game every year. Unfortunately, the Browns would discover Graham could not be replaced. They suffered their first losing season in 1956. The silver lining was it gave them the 5th pick in the draft. With that, they selected Jim Brown, and with Jim Brown, they returned to the championship game. But this time, the Lions blew them out. That would be the final title game Paul Brown would coach in, and in 1962, he was fired as the Cleveland Browns head coach. But the fact remains, the Browns established themselves as the best team in pro football for a decade and set a record that will never be broken. 10 championship appearances in 10 years.